I was born in Paris at a place called Le Valois-Perret in 1924. After that, when I moved to the south of France, I must have been 4 years old, something like that. I didn't know any grandfather or grandmother because when my mother and my father married, my father had divorced and had a son already. And my mother had been married, so I had two half-brothers, son of my father, son of my mother, and I had a real brother who was born 4 years before me. My mother was very nice, and she was a typical French mother because she was always elegant. I never saw her dressed like that. My father was a military man, so when he woke me up in the morning, he would say, "It's time for you to get up, and don't make me come here a second time." So it shows you how it was. I started ballet because it's my father who ordered me to go to the ballet class. So I went there, and the ballet teacher was such a beautiful woman. I was always in admiration with her, and I asked my mother, I said, "Do you think I look a little bit like her?" And she said, yes, when you have the makeup, you look like that. Because after I started to take ballet class, I went to many performances in the hospital for children or for things like this. So I danced immediately. I think the Dying Swan, I danced the Dying Swan when I was 14 years old. So when I danced for His Majesty the King here, the Dying Swan, I had been dancing that for many years. The way I met my husband was rather strange. The thing is, when I was taking lesson in Paris with my Russian ballet teacher, it was a French lady came with a daughter, and she always talked to me and asking me, "What are you going to do now?" And so I said, "Now I'm going to go to Germany, to Munich, to dance the Lady and the Unicorn." "Oh, I have a friend over there who is married to an American I want you to meet." To make sure I will never meet this woman, I never went back to my teacher in Paris before I left for Germany. But this French woman had an idea. She wrote to her friend in Munich and said, the person is coming to the theater, she's going to dance, na. So the friends in Munich wrote a letter to me and said, "I have heard that you are going to dance here in Munich, we would like to meet you." I felt very bad. I said, not very popular like this, so I said, okay. So I answered back to this woman, and I put 2 tickets for the opening night of the ballet, The Lady and the Unicorn. Instead of coming 2, they came 3. The third one was a friend of them, and he's the one who became my husband. I got married in Germany, in Wiesbaden, in 1953. So I have everybody around me. I went to Thailand in 1954. First of all, when I gave birth with my mother, I came back immediately to Thailand. Somali must have been 8 months or something like that. Immediately, Tanpu Ying Tasani has been asking me to teach at the Royal School. So I was happy to do that. So I knew the Princess Ubonrat, the Crown Prince, and all the other princesses, Sirinton and Chulapon, before I ever met the King and Queen. And when I was teaching, you know, Princess Sirinton didn't like this ballet business, so she escaped in the garden, and so I had to run in the garden and grab her and say, "Now, back to work." So it's the way I met them. The king came and looked at the lessons sometimes, and the queen too, because one day she told to His Majesty, "You see how she works? I make everybody suffer very much." One day I was at the school and I was talking to Her Majesty, and she said, "I would like to ask you, I would like to take a private lesson with you here." That was gymnastic, and sometimes the king stayed for the lesson, and Her Majesty said to His Majesty the king, "When we do something difficult, you should clap your hands." I remember that. My husband had a disease called multiple sclerosis, and it comes slowly. You lose the way of seeing, you lose the way you cannot eat anymore, things like this. We went to Canada to help my husband with some doctors there, and we had a small house in America near Washington. And one day when I came back from Canada with my 3 daughters, all small, and my husband making a face like this, the doctor told me, "Your husband has 2 more years to live." He didn't say that in front of him, he just said that to me. So I was quite upset. I drove back from Montreal to Washington, and when I arrived at the house, there was a letter there, and it was a letter from the Secretary of Her Majesty saying, "I have been ordered by Her Majesty to write to you. If the American doctor cannot do any more thing for your husband, why don't you come home?" And I said, "I will never forget this, come home." I was so happy. I told my husband, and he was so happy. And instead of living 2 more years, he lived 20 more years. Ça va être l'entrée du... I was in ballet. I belonged to this ballet. It was no question of separating myself from this dancing. It was part of me. Ballet is a very difficult thing because you have to decide if you like ballet, you have to accept many things, and you have to control yourself in many ways. The way you eat, the way you behave, at what time you come, and the exercise you are doing. Even if it is very painful, you still have to do it. I never miss my lesson. You have to use it the way you feel inside of you. Your personality is coming out very much. And I think I enjoy myself. That's why I was very often invited to go to performances. I talked to the students, and I wanted to tell them that every night when I pray God, I thank the sky, everybody in the sky, to have sending me to Thailand. It's a beautiful country. And it's a country where I never saw misery. Nobody is starving here. If anybody comes to you for asking something, always there is an answer, and the people are always ready to help.
Là, il la réveille, il essaye de la...